Imagine the world tens of thousands of years ago. A world without roads, without maps, where every river was a barrier, an impassable line drawn by nature itself. For our Stone Age ancestors, the world was small, confined by the water's edge. But one day, something happened. A log, perhaps knocked loose by the wind, slipped into the river, but it refused to drown. It floated. That single, simple moment of observation would change the fate of humanity forever. Think about it. In a world where everything seemed destined to be pulled under by the current, here was this piece of a tree, just bobbing along, carried by the very force that should have consumed it. Our ancestors, gathered at the riverbank, would have watched it, their minds racing. They followed it along the shore, mesmerized. Why didn't it sink? Why did it defy the water? This wasn't just a floating log. It was a question, a puzzle presented by nature. Curiosity is one of humanity's oldest and most powerful instincts. So, they began to experiment. They picked up a stone, heavy and dense, in their palm, and tossed it into the water. It vanished instantly. Asterisk, plunk, asterisk, gone. Then, they picked up a branch, light and porous, and threw it in. It danced on the surface. They tried it again and again. Stone sinks, wood floats. Stone sinks, wood floats. A pattern emerged, a fundamental law of physics being discovered not in a lab, but on the muddy bank of a forgotten river. This simple experiment sparked a revolution in their understanding of the world. What else floats? Leaves, dried gourds. What makes wood so special? The next logical step was not just to observe, but to interact. Imagine the bravest, or perhaps the most curious, of the group. Seeing that large, stable-looking log drift by, they waded in. The cold water swirling around their legs, they reached out and placed a hand on it. It held firm. They pushed it, and it moved. Then came the true test. They tried to put their weight on it. The log rolled and splash. They were back in the water, sputtering and probably being laughed at by their companions. Failure. But for early humans, failure was just another word for learning. Each fall taught them something new about balance, about weight distribution, about the way the log responded to their every move. They learned that a wider log was more stable, that sitting was easier than standing, that gentle movements were key. They were no longer just watching the water. They were starting to understand its secrets. One person struggling on a single log is a lesson. A group working together is a breakthrough. They saw that one log was unstable, but what about 2 or 3? Using tough vines stripped from the forest, they began to lash branches and logs together. It was a slow, clumsy process. Knots had to be invented, tested, and improved. But eventually, a crude, flat structure took shape. It wasn't pretty, it was barely a raft, but it was theirs. They had built it. With cautious steps, they climbed aboard. It held one person, then 2, then 3. The platform dipped but remained afloat. They had done it. For the first time, humanity had conquered the water. Using long poles to push against the riverbed, they navigated their new creation. The river was no longer a barrier. It was a highway. A new age had silently begun. The age of exploration. That day, our ancestors learned a lesson that echoes through all of human history. Curiosity can float above fear. They didn't just cross a river. They crossed a fundamental limit that had defined their existence. They proved that with observation, experimentation, and collaboration, the impossible could become possible. The world suddenly became twice as big. What wonders, what dangers, and what new peoples lay on the other side. As they reached the opposite bank, stepping onto unfamiliar ground, they might have seen something that would spark the next great revolution. The flicker of a distant fire, the silhouette of an unfamiliar face. Across the water, they saw strangers. How would they greet them? How would they warn of danger or share the joy of their discovery? The need to connect was born, and that leads us to our next great leap forward. Join us next time as we explore the most powerful tool ever invented, the discovery of communication and language. Thank you so much for watching and sharing this journey with us. If you enjoyed this story of human ingenuity, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next adventure into the past. We'll see you next time.